Hello everyone, and happy Mother's Day from the Friends of Dundonald Castle. My name is Blythe, and I am the castle's education officer, and here today to celebrate Mother's Day and this week's International Women's Day, we are going to talk about a very special lady, the mother of the entire Stewart dynasty, Marjorie Bruce. Marjorie was born sometime around November to December 1296. Her father, Robert the Bruce, was not actually King of Scotland at the time, his family's claim having been turned down in favor of the Balliol's claim just a few years prior. At the time of her birth, Robert the Bruce was instead Earl of Carrick. Marjorie's mother, Isabella of Mar, was daughter of the Earl of Mar and had married Robert only the year before in 1295. Sadly, Marjorie's mother Isabella died shortly after giving birth. Robert the Bruce didn't remarry until 1302, leaving a 6-year gap between his marriages. It wasn't until Marjorie was 9 years old when, on the 27th of March 1306, her father, Robert the Bruce, was crowned King of Scotland and she became a princess. On the 19th of June 1306, only a few months later, Robert was defeated at the Battle of Methven by an army under the command of Aymer de Valence, the brother-in-law to John Comyn, a man that Robert the Bruce had murdered on his path to the throne. This defeat forced Marjorie and the king's wife Elizabeth de Burgh to flee north with the Earl of Atholl, while the king, Robert the Bruce, and his supporters fled west. The Earl of Atholl, Elizabeth de Burgh, and Marjorie Bruce fled to Kildrummie Castle to be placed under the care of Robert's brother Neil Bruce, who was at the time the keeper of Kildrummie Castle. However, not long later, under Edward of Carnarvon, heir to the English throne, the English besieged Kildrummie and eventually captured it in September 1306. Though it seems that before the castle fell, Elizabeth and Marjorie had tried to escape and were captured outside the castle by Edward's men and brought to his father, Edward I. Elizabeth, Marjorie, and Robert's sister Christina were all kept in English captivity until 1314. When, likely as part of a trade which saw the English Humphrey de Bohun, Earl of Hereford, who had been captured at the Battle of Bannockburn, returned safely to England in exchange for Bishop Robert Wishart of Glasgow, Bruce's sister Christina, Robert Bruce's wife, Elizabeth de Burgh, and of course, Marjorie herself. Marjorie returned to Scotland sometime around late December 1314, shortly before her 18th birthday, and early the following year she was betrothed and subsequently married to Walter VI High Stewart of Scotland. Walter had been born in 1293 to James V High Stewart and his wife Agidia, daughter of an Irish nobleman, and he inherited the position of Stewart upon his father James's death in 1309, around the age of 16. Having come from such a prestigious family and being near Marjorie's age, it seems likely that Marjorie would have been familiar with Walter in her childhood, and in fact it is clear that Walter was present at Robert the Bruce's coronation in 1306, seemingly without his father, meaning that he had some close connection to the court from a young age. Marjorie's marriage to Walter Stewart in 1315 cemented the Stewarts' loyalty to the Bruce cause, and it could, if necessary, provide the male heir which had not been born to Robert himself, as in 1315, Robert still had no sons. The following year saw just such a child be born when, in early 1316, Marjorie gave birth to a son, christened Robert after his grandfather. Sadly, shortly after Robert's birth, Marjorie passed away. According to the stories, a heavily pregnant Marjorie had fallen from a horse while out riding and hit her head. She was returned to Paisley Abbey where she, allegedly, gave birth to Robert via cesarean and passed away only a few hours later. In fact, a cairn still present in Paisley commemorates Marjorie's life and states, near this spot, Marjorie was fatally injured by falling from her horse. It should be kept in mind, however, that little is known on the actual details of Marjorie's death. And sadly, that is everything we have on Marjorie Bruce. Despite her short and tragic life as mother to Robert Stewart, Marjorie went on to be the mother of the entire Stewart dynasty. And of course, it is her that we have to thank for the man who built our castle, Robert II. If you're curious at all about the life of Robert II, please have a look at our website. Several blog posts and videos have gone up about Robert II recently, because just this year we are celebrating 650 years since his ascension to the Scottish throne in 1371.